ladies and gentlemen, Moshe Zusman. Thanks.
Okay, so before we start, first of all, I want to really say a very honest thank you for David and everybody at B&H for bringing me here, because without them, I wouldn't be here. I know that Jason said he bought his first camera at B&H. I bought my first one internationally at B&H, so I topped that. I had mine shipped overseas. And of course, ProPhoto that brought me here, and the rest of the companies that always support my educational program. I'm here to give back to everybody. So thank you guys for coming today. I do use some weird language sometimes. I apologize for that. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. I am not a natural-born photographer. I did not start with a camera in my hand. I did not go to school for it. I'm all self-taught. My background is marketing and sales. I used to sell women's clothes and computer support and everything like that. I only started photography 10 years ago. Started as a hobby. I wanted to photograph my dog. I bought a point-and-shoot camera, and it really transformed really fast, because in 2007, I started my own company. As the speaker before me, Ryan, said that 2008 was the worst recession year, that's when my business boomed, because I learned everything I know through things like this, through WPPI. WPPI is what taught me everything I know, and I'm here to give it back to you guys and to B&H. The funny thing is that I could talk about business forever. One of my favorite topics is business, and I do business classes all over the country. But we're not here to talk about business. I will tell you what brought my business up, side of many things. What I'm about to talk to you about today. What inspired me is to watch other photographers work, and lighting and posing is the most important thing to me that sets me apart. You've heard what Joe said this morning? Do what makes you love photography and do something different. Well, I realized that to do something different, I want to use lighting and posing to differentiate myself from those who don't. And that really took my business way up. I'm not going to talk about numbers. All I can tell you that as a single man operation in 2010, I almost made it to the point where the IRS wanted to knock on my door. So the point is, you guys can also do it. Everybody in this room can do it. Has anybody ever gone to the gym here? What? Not a joke. Everybody's been to the gym. Have you ever heard of someone suing the gym for not becoming really well fit? No, because the gym gives you the tools. The tools are there. It's up to you what you do with it. So I'm going to give you some ideas, some tips, and some advice. I had a very struggling start. I don't know if you know, English is not my first language. It's my second language. If I can do it, you guys can. I'm going to show you a slideshow that is a summary of my work. I like to work with color, with contrast, with off-camera lighting. I don't always have to use off-camera lighting, but it's my preferred way to control the light and not let the light control me. So here's a small slideshow. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Now, in order to really inspire you, which is what I'm here for, I have to show you where I started. At my home, on a laptop, tethered to a TV, or at Starbucks. That's where I used to meet couples. Not everybody has a studio. I never had a studio. I started at home doing $500 weddings. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't know better, and I charged based on what I thought I was worth. And after 5 years of doing that, now I have a 1,600 square foot studio that I own, and I work out of that studio, and I'm very, very diversified. That studio brings me so much work around the year. I don't have a season. I work 330 days a year. I don't take vacations. I don't celebrate my own anniversary, unfortunately, but that's the price you pay. And I don't consider it a price to pay because I do what I love. I'm one of those lucky guys. I consider myself luckier than most people I know. So hopefully with that, you guys can end up doing exactly what you guys want to do. I stopped doing 40 to 50 weddings a year because it also killed my inspiration. I felt like I'm doing the same thing all the time. I'm not even finished downloading memory cards from one. I'm doing the other one. Now I do select weddings, 15 to 20 a year at an average contract of $12,000 to $13,000. Because it brings me, thank you, because it brings me the same amount of money that I would have done 45 weddings at $3,000 to $4,000. And I'd rather work smarter than harder. But I still work very hard. Here is what I used to do. I used to work with available light, which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I used to not try to do the more, the extra effort to really step out of the box. You would put me in a place and I would just do exactly what was there. I wasn't trying to create anything. And instead, I can do this. Same scenario, almost the same couch, same hotel, just a few years apart, working with available light. I used to just let couples walk down away from me and do something that they want to do, and not posing them, not trying hard. Instead, I can do this photo in 5 minutes. Ask yourself, if you were a commercial photographer and someone commissioned you to create an advertisement of some sort for bridesmaids' dresses, and you had to create this photo, you would spend about a day. I was able to produce this photo in 5 minutes because I knew how to pose and I knew how to light. It is very, very simple when you know what you're doing. And my biggest fear when I was starting is what to do with flash. Flash changes the image completely. Who here honestly wants to admit that they're not really a great fan of using a flash? Because it completely throws away the image. Keep them up there and look around you. You're not alone. Okay, I was like that too. And in 2009, I had an eye-opening experience where I started really incorporating off-camera flash and lighting to everything I do. Thanks to learning to be inspired, today I will do the same for you, hopefully. Now, before we start, I know everybody has a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we can only take a couple of questions from the crowd because there's 400 or 500 of you here, and there's 1,000 people viewing us on stream, and they're going to bring us some questions through that. But I will do my best to answer questions, and if not now, immediately as this class is over. One of the things that everybody wants to know is what's in my camera bag. Well, there you go. I use 2 Canon cameras, one DX and one 5D Mark III. I use a lot of Canon speed lights. I use prime lenses and some zoom lenses. I have a Nexto DI, which is one of the best devices to back up your memory cards on the spot, and SanDisk cards. Sorry, Lexar. In my lighting bag, I use ProPhoto gear. Why do I use ProPhoto? It's not because they brought me here. It's because they are providing me with consistent, high-quality light. Very, very simple. I can talk about it forever, but we're not here to talk about the quality of the light. We're here to talk about lighting and posing. If you do have questions, bring it on. I use ProPhoto Acute B2 Air if I need 1 to 2 lights on site. If I need a little more elaborate setups, I use the ProPhoto D1 Airs. I have 6 of those. And I also use the ProPhoto the new B1, which is fantastic. It's what we have here, and it works on battery. It's battery powered. It's a dream for photographers. It's what you could do with a speed light multiplied by maybe 50 times in power, and with TTL. And my favorite light shaping is anything that I can put a grid on. If it's a beauty dish or a reflector or a softbox of any size, I put grids on them so I can control the light more. My rule is the more I control, the more things I set on manual, the more I can control them. And only when I need to, I will go to auto mode, just like when you do with your camera or with your flash and TTL. So I'm very diversified. I shoot 15, 20 very high-end weddings a year, and I do a lot of food photography and studio work and commercial and portrait. And everything you can see, you won't see a lot of black and white. I love black and white, and I do black and white. But what defines my style is a lot of color and contrast and vibrance. And that's what I like to do for my clients. The photos that I'm going to show my clients are always going to be the more vibrant ones. The ones that I love, the ones that I consider my portfolio images. The rule, the most important rule in photography, shoot it right. Does anybody disagree? Does anybody believe that there's a Photoshop action that can correct white balance that you would like to use instead of shooting it right, or exposure? I don't own Photoshop. You guys know, I'm sure everybody here owns Photoshop. I don't. I use Lightroom to make adjustments to my images, and I'm going to show you some examples very soon about how photos came out of the camera and what I did with Lightroom, and they're not far from each other. But shoot it right and get it right. So today we're going to cover posing and lighting. We're going to start with posing and transition to lighting. We're going to talk a little bit about how to pose couples for engagement sessions, because that's where it starts. Every couple deserves and needs an engagement session. Why do I do engagement sessions? Because I want to get to know them. I want to see how far I can push the envelope, and then I'll push it even further. I want them to know me. Because 18 months from now, when the wedding comes by, I don't want to be the stranger with the camera that walks in 18 months after they sign the contract. They're not going to remember who I am. We'll talk about posing bride and groom, bride alone, groom alone, how to deal with the wedding parties and family formals, which all is part of the wedding day. And we're going to talk about lighting. Anything from available light to 3 to 4 lights, which I use in a regular setup. I will definitely make a point that what I like about lighting, and especially with what ProPhoto did with the latest product, is its portability. It is the worst thing to do when you're shooting a wedding is start scrambling and looking for cables and outlets and what's wrong with this and where do I plug that and who's taking care of it. Now I have lights that I can take anywhere. Everything is so compact and it works really well and very, very consistent. Portability and the quality of light is really important in light shaping. I'm going to demo some of that, hopefully, if we have time towards the very end. I'm going to try and do a shoot here real quick and demo, because light is not just the light, it's how you shape it. Between you and me, a light is a light. But what you shape it and how you shape it is what defines the photo. I'm going to tell you a few secrets of success. Professionalism. I studied under the same photography guy for 3 years. I can tell you I don't shoot his style. I don't use the same gear. We don't have the same market, and we're totally different people. But what I learned from him is how to be professional. If you're a professional, you can succeed in anything, and definitely in photography. Consistency is extremely important. When I was working without off-camera lighting and I didn't really know anything about lighting or correcting the light and the color temperature, I would deliver different exposures, and my post-production would be hours and days. And now, when I'm finishing a wedding, everything looks very consistent. I can do batch process and edit a wedding in 30 minutes, which makes me a lot more productive, and I can go and do more photography at that time or spend time with my family. I have a son that I really want to see growing up. So I had to up the game. Education. You guys are here for a reason. I'm sure it's not for the free candy or for the warm seat. It's because you're educating yourself. And I keep doing it every year. I go and sit at the same class that you guys are sitting, and I watch other speakers, and I've been here in the back all day listening to everybody. And without education, you will not make it to the place you want to get. And with education, you can actually educate your clients about what's a better photo and deliver to them better photos. And inspiration, that is a very, very strong word. Without inspiration, none of us would be here. Do you guys agree? I honestly can talk about it all day, but I really want to get to the juice, the sauce, as David described it. Important thing is to listen to your couples. Without listening to them, you're just going to do stuff that only you want to do, and that's not really what I'm there for. I'm lucky because I created a style and a look in my images that's very edgy and very sexy, and couples come to me because of that. But I still listen to them. And in the beginning, I had to listen to everybody, and I still do, because without understanding what they want from me, I'm just going to give them something else. So always, always listen to your clients. It is the most important thing you can do. The secret to a great portrait, whether it's a bride or a groom or a wedding party or a family, is to compose the image properly. And I'm going to show you a lot of examples. We're just going to go through a marathon of images in a few minutes. Learn how to pose, because without posing, you just have people standing there like this. I don't photograph models for a living. I photograph real people that are nervous in front of the camera. How do I get the photos that I get? It's because I actually have a conversation with them, and I talk to them, and I make them feel comfortable. And sometimes I give them alcohol. No, I do, really. Why? Alcohol? They're adults. Lighting. Lighting really differentiates. Using lighting opened up a whole new world for me. I used to have to tell couples, well, the sun is setting in 10 minutes. I'm sorry, we got to wrap up, because reflector cannot reflect if the sun is not out. Now I can shoot into the dark. I can create night shots because I understand lighting. I was really scared of it in the beginning. Now I know. Post-production is half of what we do, even if it's just Lightroom, like Joe said this morning. Without post-production, you're delivering only half of your work. So with post-production, we put our touch, our last touch, what makes the photo different from the guy next to us that shot the same thing. And it's really important because sometimes it can take more than half of your time to create the photo. So hopefully, if we have time, we'll talk about a little post-production that I do. And if you have any questions, please bring them up. And again, listen to your couples. It is really, I'll show you a photo later of a family that I photographed. That just by listening to them, I realized that they're a crazy family. And I love them. They're good crazy. And you'll see what I did with their photo in a little bit. Next, I'll show you a quick behind-the-scene video just so you see how we work, how we make all this happen with one light or two lights on site, and how fun I try to keep my sessions with my couples. It's from this shoot that we did for this couple. And this couple came to me. It's a friend of mine and his wife, and they got married over 6 years ago. And their complaint was that they simply didn't have good photos. And that really bothers me, to hear stories about couples who had photographers who crapped their wedding photos because they were too lazy or just not professional enough. So we took them out on a photo shoot, and we started posing them. And we really did a fun job with them. Every photo that came out really, really nice. I really wish we could turn this video on, but it's not working. So I'm going to show you. You could see their reaction, how they loved it. And the first thing to learn about posing, and most photographers, what they do is they buy wide aperture lenses. Who here has the 1.2 lenses in their camera bag? Don't be shy, hands up. 1.2, 1.4, 1.8. I used to own all of them. I still do a couple. But why did I used to get those lenses? Because the client's reaction and my reaction to the images that I want to blur out the background, I want to separate them from the background behind them. That's mainly what you do with wide aperture. Well, because low lighting is not an issue anymore with today's cameras and high ISO. So it's really for the separation, for the depth of field. Well, guess what? I like to incorporate the background in my photos. If my couples take me to the place where they had their first kiss, why do I want to eliminate the background? I want to bring it into the shot. So we'll talk about paying attention to the background. C-curve and S-curve, two basic elements in posing, especially when you pose women and girls, is really important to pay attention, because if you're just telling someone to go stand over there, I want to take a picture, they're simply going to go and stand there like they're in timeout. But instead, if you learn how to pose very basically, then you can create beautiful photos, look very fashiony. And lighting is key, which we'll get to soon. Here's an example of something I used to do years ago. Just aim the camera at something and just take the shot. And here's another example of a group photo. Because I wasn't assertive enough and I wasn't motivated enough to do beyond what was in front of me. Or this. Bad exposures, bad color balance. But instead, when you learn how to pose and create an S-curve, if you look at her body, you can see an S-curve, you're already taking it to the next level. You don't have to use lighting everywhere, but posing is extremely important. Incorporating the background into your work. If it's the store where she works or the place they first kiss, or it's just something that looks like an ad, and I want to take advantage of it, then why not? New York City. I don't come here too often, but when I do, I definitely try to take advantage of photographing people. And this is, believe it or not, available light. Would have been better if I was using off-camera light, but that's not the point. This is all available light. This is I used a tilt-shift lens, created a lens baby effect, what people call, and took this photo. Or even when I am photographing engagement sessions and I tell a couple to get away and go far away and hug each other or kiss, I make sure they're not just standing there like two kids in timeout. They're actually hugging each other, bringing each other close, lifting their chins up, and creating a photo, maintaining the rule of thirds, and creating some negative space in my image. I make sure that it'll pop. Same location. Without bringing those elements into your work, you're not going to be able to give your clients something that others can't. Something that makes you stand out. Vibrance and colors is what define my work. Here's a basic bride alone posing. Now, this is not something that a bride would do on her own. This is something you have to create. If you do only candid photography, this will not happen. Neither this. But if you are not afraid and you drop the long lens and you take a shorter lens and you walk towards your couple and you're not shy and you're professional, there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to do this. And there you go, there's another S-curve on both images. And groom alone. Guys are really the easiest work to do. Guys are easy. And they don't require a lot of attention. They don't need a lot of work. But you still have to pose them. You still have to create something. Out of every wedding I photographed for the past 5-10 years, every groom at least can take one photo and make it his LinkedIn photo or profile photo. Because they're looking good that day, then why not take advantage? They're not just a couple, they're also two individuals. So you photograph the groom and you photograph them against backgrounds. Again, incorporate those backgrounds into your work. And couples. Different lens perspectives can create different looks in the same location sometime. Available light, off-camera light. Both work great. Without off-camera light, I wouldn't be able to create this photo here. I had to balance it between the background and the front. And here, available light. Should we take any questions? All right, I'm going to go to the next slide while David comes here. Bridal party. A lot of fun working with bridal party because everybody's happy, everybody's excited, and I get to do what I like to do best, pose people and light people. And you can see the girl on the left with a C curve and the girl on the right with an S curve. And everybody's doing something. Not one of them is just standing there not doing anything that I want them to do. I put the camera down. I'm not too crazy about just like spraying. I'll put the camera down and I'm going to walk there and pose them. And if you are not sure that you're relaying the message or the pose to the person properly, then again, put the camera down, go, have her move away from the chair, and simply tell her what to do and do it yourself. And have them come and replace you. Should we take a question?
Looking for a good one.
Okay. Should I keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Everyone loves you on Twitter, by the way.
Good to hear. Thank you, guys. One of the bigger challenges that I have in a wedding is posing large groups. Okay, lacrosse teams and things like that. Some weddings become really big in my area, and this is a group of 20-some people. It's challenging. It's very, very challenging because you can run out of ideas and not everybody works great in every pose, but it's doable with a large enough space and off-camera lighting. I used 2 lightings from the sides here, 2 lights, just to create that extra edge and create that rim light that you see on each person. I'm going to start using those terms very soon, rim lighting.
I have a good question for you. Okay, Twitter question. This is from Clarice Rivera. How do you determine what to charge for a wedding? How do you determine your worth?
It's a great question, how to determine what I charge for a wedding. You have to really look at a few things. You have to look at the market around you, the demographics, the people you're catering to, and really have to evaluate your work. I think that photographers, and that's a whole different topic in a class that I do a lot, photographers who do any kind of wedding for under $1,500 or $2,000 are simply losing money. I'm not going to run through the formula, but I have a very, very discouraging formula that if you do it under $2,000, you're literally losing money. You have to do 3 weddings a month just to break even. So I started doing $500 weddings because I didn't know better when I was working from home and I thought that I don't have any overhead. But eventually I grew into understanding that post-production costs money even if I'm doing it. Time is money. It's a very simple thing. You hear it all your life. Time is money. Once you understand it, you realize that, okay, maybe I'm worth $200 an hour. Maybe I'm worth $500 an hour. And that's how you determine how to charge. Another bridal party, we had to use 1 light here. Can anybody guess where it is? Camera left. Wrong. Right, camera left is a window with a lot of light. Camera right was the darker side of the room, so we had to use 1 little light, put a diffuser in front of it and shoot through it, and that's it. We balanced it. Without it, I would have very hard shadows, harder than these, on their side. Here's another scenario. We only had 5 minutes from the management at the W Hotel, and they said in 5 minutes, you're going to have to leave. So we had to figure out really quick how to do it. So while I was posing them, I had my assistant set up 2 lights, and boom, done. What would the average photographer do? Have them stand up, hold their bouquets in a choo-choo train line, looking like, what do they call sorority photos, right? And end it and say, I'm sorry, we only had 5 minutes. Well, I did 2 complete different photos in 2 sides of the room in under 5 minutes because I knew what I was doing. I practiced all the time. If you guys don't practice, it won't happen. You have to practice on your spouse, on your friends, on your kids, whoever you can. Just pose them and take a photo and see the difference. Does anybody here have any questions about posing? Because I have to go super fast, and I'm trying to give you as much as I can, but yes. I can't hear you. What modifiers am I using for this photo? Actually, we use 2 umbrellas, very basic, because we have to use what we have. Do I have a particular place I suggest learning about posing? First of all, look up any workshops in your area. If you see a photographer that you like their work, that's probably what they're going to teach you in the workshop. If you ask me, take the extra step, go to WPPI next year. You're going to learn more than you can imagine. I learned everything from WPPI, every possible thing. Last one.
As you're going through it, can you show the S and the C curve you're talking about? I'm not getting the total.
I'll go back really quick and I'll show you. Let's see. Here we go. C curve right there. S curve, girl on the right. Okay? Not every pose has to be either C or an S, but those are two examples in one shot. Okay.
You said that before. I don't think he understands. I think you need to explain what you mean by seeker.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, so you see how I'm going to do what usually a bride will do? See this pose here? When you're hugging the groom and looking up? You see the letter C here? See the shape? I would go back and show you again. Sorry, I should have done that. Whoops. Here you go. This is the letter C. Just reversed, mirrored. But it looks like the letter C. And here's the letter S. And you need to see that. It's very simple. Whenever you look at, just if you simply do this, boom, you got an S curve. Don't make me do this again. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about lighting, because that really, posing I've been doing for a while, but lighting is really what opened up my eyes to creativity. Whoever asked me, how do I determine how much to charge? That's something that I can tell you for a fact. When I show my portfolio to clients, I brag about my lighting and my posing, and especially the lighting, and I tell them, look at other photographers, and I educate my couples all the way to understanding what a rim light looks like and how to separate someone from the background with lighting. And I tell them, the next time you meet another photographer, see if they can do the same thing. So it really opened up my creativity. I can shoot in darker locations. This is practically sunset. This is a nice pro photo setup of 2 lights that we did. And we created this video and photo series for this couple. I really will try after this to pop the video and run it right out of my computer to show you how much fun that was right at National Airport in DC with planes flying over their head. With lighting, I can control the situation and not be controlled. How many times you guys are using either a program or aperture priority and you're changing the setup and all of a sudden your exposure is completely off? Well, if you bring lighting into locations, you're pretty much bringing studio to the location and you're controlling the exposures. So I'd much rather be in control. And of course, I can get more and more creative. Again, I think the best way is not to show trophies, but to show you how much my photography used to suck. I call this end of days. Doesn't it look like it? Looks like a nuke went off in DC. But that's what I used to do because I didn't know better. I would just slap presets in Lightroom and Actions and Photoshop and mishmash it and say, couples, here's creative. Tell them, here's creative. This is The Walking Dead. Okay? He has eyes, I promise. You just can't see them because of the shadows. And this was green originally, green grass. Now, I have to say, my couples, whatever I delivered, they liked it because maybe it worked at the time. But now, everybody's up in their games. And a lot of people ask me, why do you teach? Why do you teach your secrets? Well, first of all, I didn't invent anything. Second of all, if all of you got better and all my I don't have competition in the meaning that everybody, there's enough work for everybody. But if everybody in DC in my area got better, you know what it would do to me? It would make me get even better. So that's why I'm doing it. Here's another one from The Walking Dead. So that's how bad it used to be. So let's talk about off-camera lighting, okay? Here's a gear list. Everybody's going to take a photo now, which is a good time for me to drink. I'm dying here. Typically, when I'm on location, between 1 and 3 light setups, and I'm going to show you examples of all of them. I try to keep it simple, but I keep with me extra lights in the trunk. Sometimes I forget the batteries, but that's a different story. But this is what it looks like. I usually use a VALS. Anybody knows what a VALS is? Voice-activated light stand, exactly. It's an assistant that listens to what you tell them, and they move the light, so it's a perfect light stand. You don't even need a sandbag. It's perfect. So that, very simple. And I love using grids on my lights. I mentioned that already. Grids, if you don't know, is that egg crate thingy you see on any light shaper that instead of 120 or 170 degrees of light, brings it down to 50 and 25 degrees sometimes. It's up to you. I love using the Acute B2 Air because they work great. They're compact. I take them anywhere. Now, of course, we have the B1s, which are even better, even faster, last longer. And they don't even require my assistant to carry a battery on their shoulder because it's built in. So we'll demo that later, too. So that's the B1s. I prefer to use a softbox or a beauty dish, one of the two things. If I'm going solo, one light, softbox, 2x3, or if I have to use maybe an octobox or a 3x4, it's actually too big. But for the most part, if I photograph couples only, 2x3 is enough. And the air system to trigger my lights. Any questions about this setup? It's pretty plain and simple. Good. Let's go over a few steps of how to create a great portrait. Very, very simple. The most important thing is composition. Remember that I'm not just throwing people against walls or using wide aperture. I compose a shot. I listen to my clients and I find out if they want to see the Eiffel Tower in the background. This is Vegas, by the way. I didn't make it to France. But if they want to see the Eiffel Tower, if they want to see the ocean in the background, or anything that means to them, I have to incorporate into the photo. So composition is the stage where you plan the shot. Then, posing. We'll talk about posing, because posing is key. You see her S-curve? Everybody sees it? It's there. And exposure. Your image exposure, your camera settings. Very simple. Your shutter speed controls the ambient light. Your aperture controls your flash and your flash exposure on the subject. Very simple. I'll go through that as well. Light your subject by adding the light and doing post-production. So the way it works, when I go on site, any kind of photo, let's start from the beginning. I have a couple who wanted to photograph at National Airport, Gravelly Point, beautiful. Anybody ever seen this spot in DC? It's really nice. The planes go over your head if they're taking off north. First of all, keep an eye on the background. I'm using the background to my advantage. And I'm setting my exposure, listen to this. I'm setting my exposure as if I'm a landscape photographer. Look at me, I don't have a light meter on me. I don't even own a light meter. I look at my camera. I'm setting the shot as if I'm about to take a landscape photo. That's my exposure. I stick to basic standards. I want to shoot at f4. That's good enough for me. I don't want to completely blur out the background. And I change my shutter speed and ISO. Shutter speed, I like to stay in safe speeds, 60th of a second. And I'll change my camera's ISO to accommodate it based on the exposure. I'm still not triggering any lights. So I take this photo, and that's my first shot. Then I pose the couples. I bring them into the photo. Obviously, they're underexposed, correct? Underexposed. But I mind the rule of thirds and ignore that in this photo. You'll see it in the final shot. But I keep an eye on the rule of thirds. And the best rule about rules is that sometimes it's okay to break the rules. But generally, I keep an eye on it. I will pose them in an edgy or a sexy way because that's what makes my photos look different than others. Because I dare. And I try to keep it fun all the time. So after I establish their pose, I'm going to set my shutter speed as we already established to the ambient lighting. Now, the sun keeps going down. It keeps changing all the time. Between the time I started and I ended, I had to change my exposure. So keep an eye on your exposure. I set my shutter speed for the ambient light. Is that clear for everybody so far? Okay, because if it's not, it's important that you know it. Otherwise, you're stuck. And the aperture is for the subject. And that means that I have to bring my lighting into play. And you see what the lighting does. At that point, all you have to do is adjust the lighting and shape the light. Because if you move the light too further back, his head is going to cast a shadow on her. And if you bring the light too close to the camera, they're going to be really flat lit, and there won't be any shadow, and you're going to lose the dimension. So you want to play with your lighting to accommodate and to shape them. And how many lights are in this shot? 2. You see the light on her back? That is not natural light. This is another umbrella coming from the other side. And here is the final shot. Now this has no Photoshop in it, straight out of the camera. A little bit of vignette, color correction, contrast, levels, and that's it. Wait for the right moment, get the plane, and there you go. Very simple.
Got a question for you.
Oh.
How did you cue that plane into the shot? Was that timed? Okay, so this question is from Kapla. This is Utufyan, and the question is a good one because you've got all these lights. But how many assistants do you take to a wedding? Thank you.
To a wedding, one of the things that I take pride of, I don't take assistants to a wedding. I have photographers at a wedding. I take between an additional 1, sometimes all the way to additional 3 photographers, because I do weddings of up to 300-400 people sometimes, and I need every person that's in the room to be able to replace me if I broke my leg. So my guarantee to every couple that I photograph is that I don't have assistants. I have a crew of professional, full-time photographers, and each one of them has my knowledge, works with my style, and they can replace me. But when needed, they're going to run and get water, charge the batteries, and hold lights. And that's what makes them how good they are. They all start with me from the bottom. And they're all now at the same caliber. And it's a very high caliber. I hope that answered the question properly. So it's between 2 and 4, and then usually for engagement session, I take at least 1 person with me to really handle the light. And they have a camera sometime. If they need to, they'll pop a shot or 2. The beauty about this, about lighting, about those basic tips of lighting and posing, is that they don't have to be just for weddings. I do half of my revenue, let's call it, comes from corporate headshots. And even those, I don't do plain vanilla. I like to keep them fun. So here's another example of composing, exposing, posing, and lighting. This lady needed a photo. She works on the Hill, and she needed a corporate headshot that was not your plain background. And she wanted to keep it fun, too. So I went on this rooftop that overlooks at the Capitol, and we brought a piece of furniture, and we had everything tethered. And we brought 3 lights. But I had such beautiful lighting, I ended up only using 1. And there you go. Posing, making sure that the composition works well for me, and then lighting. And that's it. Very minimal post-production. Contrast levels, auto-white balance, bring in the blue, little vignette, and you're all set. So this works for everything. I'm going to show you some examples of how I shoot sometimes at night, sometimes during the day, sometimes with 1 light, sometimes with 5 lights. This couple, I call them Ben Affleck and what's her name? Sarah Jessica Parker, because everybody thinks that's who they are. Photographed their engagement session. We really wanted to do a shot with some color, but the day was not too colorful. At the end of the day, I took them right in my building. As we're going into the garage, I'm looking at the reflection on the glasses, and I see this beautiful reflection of blue sky and red lights and everything coming in from the glass in the building. So I just got down as I was putting the camera down. I looked up and I said, this is a beautiful shot. 1 light, right here behind him. As a rule, if you're taking notes, this is a good one to take. If I have one light or two lights and one of them is more powerful, the key light always facing the bride. Bride always means more than the groom. I'm sorry, guys. 4 lights, speed lights. I don't always use ProPhoto. I didn't have ProPhoto from the beginning. I've been using them for 3 years, but sometimes I only have speed lights with me. Speed lights can do the job very well too. Without speed lights, you're not going to get any separation between the black of his suit and the black graffiti. Without separation in lighting, you're not going to get a rim light on her leg all the way down to the shoe and the arm and the hair light. Those are concepts of studio lighting. And with off-camera lighting, you can bring those on location and bring the true colors of what you're photographing. You cannot, there isn't a camera in the world that has the dynamic range that your eye has. Your eye can see, when you're standing inside your home, your eye can see what's in the house and what's outside the window when it's really sunny out. Have you noticed it? Your camera won't do it. You either set your exposure outside and the room looks dark, or you set your exposure for the room and the window looks blown out. But your eye can do it and your camera can't. So with off-camera light, you're balancing it. Do you not agree with me? I saw you nodding. Oh, you're just happy? Okay, good. In the slideshow that I showed you, I never photograph models. Every single photo, with the exception of 2 of them, are real couples on a real wedding day. But this was a shoot we did, a bridal shoot that we did for ProPhoto, and we lit this with 2 umbrellas, very, very simple, just like we did the airport photo. Very, very simple. And edgy posing and very classic, interesting background. Beautiful couple, and that's it. And here's another one that I showed you before. Beautiful ambient light. I don't need to throw lights in the back of the room, but as you can see, if you can imagine turning off, not popping a light from the right over the bride's shoulder, they would be in complete dark. So this is one light with a 2x3 softbox, very similar to this, coming over from behind this rail and highlighting her, and you can see how beautiful what it does to the arm and the skin tone. You can't do that without lighting indoor. You can by setting the exposure to either his suit, underexposing her dress, or the exposure set to her dress, messing up his exposure. But you're not going to be able to get the details here and here. And this one, again, this was a chance. I could have done better if I had off-camera lighting, as much as I love this photo. Here's Ben Affleck again. And this photo is a really good example. One of my favorite spots in DC, by the way, overlooking the Key Bridge. Sun is setting, makes the bridge even more bright and golden. Can you take this photo without off-camera lighting? Can anybody do it without HDR or 5 exposures and layering? You simply can't. There isn't a camera that can do it. It's not you, it's the fact there's no camera. But people still try, and then they use Photoshop to bring back the sky and open up shadows in the eyes. However, here, all I had to do is set one light. I set my exposure for the background, as if they're not there. My first test shot in almost every one of those photo shoots is without anyone in the scene. I set my camera, I don't even use a tripod. I compose the shot, set my exposure, f5.6 probably, 1/200 of a second, ISO 200, boom, shot is taken. I could pretty much use it as a landscape photo. Not a great one, but a landscape photo. Then what I do is I bring them in, take another test shot. They're going to be dark silhouettes, right? But I want to get the background, because if this photo means something to them, I'm not going to give them a photo where you can see them and the background is blown out. I might as well photograph it in the studio with a seamless backdrop. But with bringing the off-camera light from camera left, you can see exactly what it did. New York City, Central Park, one of my favorite couples just had a baby. I really adore them. I love hearing those things, and it's more business. Overpowering the sun, something that you couldn't do if you didn't have off-camera lighting. You simply couldn't. Do you want to deliver silhouettes to your couples all day, or do you actually want to give them content with your silhouettes? Are nice, I do them occasionally, but I'm not there to photograph just silhouettes. So off-camera light, you can see where the sun is. It's literally outside the frame. I cropped the frame right where the sun glare was. You can see what it did here, and you can see the shadow from them. So you know the sun was coming from almost behind him, which gave him this beautiful rim light, but I had to bring light from the left. Here's, again, my other couple friends. And this photo is this, straight out of the camera. This is a raw photo converted to JPEG with 0 adjustments. And this is with minimal contrast and recovery, just changing the levels, bringing the highlights down a little bit, and vignette. Even the blurriness you see here, don't mistake for a second, was shot with a tilt-shift lens handheld. It's a manual lens that creates lens baby effect. But there's nothing fake about this photo. And maintaining my style with my posing. And what I like to do with locations, and here's another tip for you, if you were writing notes, this would be a good one. When you get to a location, you don't have to write word for word. When you get to a location and you get your sun in the right place, and the lighting or your lighting or anything, everything looks perfect, milk the hell out of that pose and location. Milk the hell out of it, because then I went one step back and I did another 20 different photos of them at the same spot. Simply changing a little bit in the head or turning around, facing each other, anything you do. You already dialed down your exposure, you got everything nailed down, so why don't you just get more from it instead of scrambling? And if I really like a location, I'll take other couples there too. There's nothing wrong with repeating yourself if it works great. If you're doing a good job, keep doing it. The problem is a lot of photographers repeat themselves when they're not doing a good job because they're afraid to learn. Same location, different time of the day, same assistant. And this photo, which I think I have some kind of repetition here, is basically how we shot this. This is exactly what you see here. After I dialed my exposure, after I got everything the way I wanted, all I have to do is, as David said, time it down, time it so that I can see the planes coming in the shot.
What is that thing next to the light? Like maybe umbrella?
This?
No, to the left.
This?
Yeah, that. What is that?
That's a speed light. And I had it there because we were filming and taking behind-the-scene photos. So the speed light was to light up other elements of the frame. But they're absolutely lit. This is a ProPhoto backpack powering a D1 Air, and there's another cord going to the other one on the other side. One of my favorite locations in Washington, D.C. is the Capitol. I have couples a lot of couples work on the Hill, work for some congressmen, some of them are congressmen, and they want a photo with the Hill somewhere in the background. Well, this is a classic spot. I got spat on, I got kicked by bicyclists, I got almost arrested. The FBI already has me on their list. That building over there is the FBI building. But I don't care, I'm going to keep doing it because it looks great, and why not? We have one light in this photo, just one light, over the, here it is actually. This is what it looks like, an umbrella with a speed light. Very, very simple.
When do you use grids?
When do I use grids? Whenever I can. I just didn't have them here. You asked when or why? Oh, well, it's hard to see them. I don't have a behind the scene for everything I do, but I do use them a lot. We used an iPhone to focus. It was dark. We were using a speed light. One of the advantages for using the ProPhoto lights is that they have a modeling light. You know what a modeling light is? It's the light that's constantly on like this, helps you illuminate the subject so you can see where the light spills, and also focus when it's really dark. And you don't have that with a speed light. So we held an iPhone, locked the focus, and then do this photo. And again, it's straight out of the camera. I didn't even Photoshop that little horn coming out of his head. Because I want you guys to see the authenticity. No, I mean, it's a little crane that was in the background. It's important for me that you guys see that what you see is what you get. And I think that is worth 10 times more than photoshopping an image and showing clients how great you are with Photoshop. Because they're not hiring you because you have Photoshop. Do you want someone to hire you because you have a great computer that can do a lot of Photoshop, or because you have an amazing eye that can capture the moment?
Got a good question for you.
Yes.
Okay. This question is from Crystal Majidici. How do you manage off-camera lighting at a wedding without being obtrusive and disruptive to their day?
That's a great question, how to manage off-camera lighting during a wedding day. So I have to tell you, do I have some time? Because it's an amazing story to tell. In 2009, I did a wedding, and it was the one that I showed you with the bridesmaids at the W Hotel. The wedding, I was only given 5 minutes to do a photo in there and 5 more minutes to do, did you see the spiral staircase photo? 5 minutes each, and they didn't do a first look. And they made me wrap everything up, and I was really feeling like I rushed. But we really did create some magic with that staircase photo. One of my favorite photos of all time. And we got into the limo. I have a photo that the bride has given me a glass of champagne. And I don't drink on the job, officially. So all the bridesmaids said, oh my God, it felt like a Vogue photo shoot. It felt like we're in a Vanity Fair cover. And that inspired me to do it every wedding, to do a photo shoot. But not in 10 minutes, because I'm not David Copperfield. I'm just a photographer. And I tell this to every couple. I need time. So I created, since 2009, and it's been working perfect. Every couple that comes in, I tell them, you guys are going to do a first look. Here's the advantages. And if you guys commit to at least 2 hours of doing that photo shoot before the ceremony, then those 2 hours are on the house. Now that's a win-win. Why would I do it if I'm not getting paid for the extra time? Because I want to give couples more photos. I don't want to give them just one photo from this room and one from the staircase. I want to give them 30 unique shots. So that's how I manage it. We allocate enough time. The longest I've done a shoot prior to a ceremony was 7 hours. 7 hours of locations and setting up lights. And when you do your engagement sessions correctly, couples will understand that you're not a magician, you're a photographer, and takes time to create a photo. So that's how we manage it. Here's another example of one light. Sun is coming from behind them. You can see the rim light it creates. You can't take this photo with an on-camera flash. You're going to get weird lighting, weird shadows. However, when you're using the right lighting coming from a 45 degree, then you are getting details in the hair and the skin and the dress. Shooting from far. This couple wanted a photo that incorporates a courthouse or one of the DC landscape, the DC buildings, the architecture. Then why not? We can't really create this photo at this level of details. If anybody ever photographed Indian or South Asian weddings, you know that there's a lot of detail in the outfits and the dresses. And if you're not using the proper lighting, they're going to be gone. Because especially when he's wearing something so dark and she's wearing something so light, the camera doesn't have the dynamic range. You have to create the right lighting to take care of that. Here's again Ben Affleck and Sarah Jessica Parker. You can see the reflection in her glass of my one light, one square softbox, very, very, very plain, over my head. Actually, in a high-res photo on HD TV, if you zoom in, you can see me and my assistant through the glasses. One of the biggest challenges we have is sunsets. If you're not lighting it, what are you going to get? Silhouette, obviously. It's okay, I do silhouettes occasionally, but I want to create a photo that shows expression and look. And after I do this photo, why not have her rest her head on his chest? Or kiss, or both turn their head and look at the camera. And look at this, I got the lighting perfect. Why not do 3 to 4 or 5 shots from the same spot and deliver variety to your couples? Agreed? Okay. I got to photograph a really cool wedding in November. I got I fly on destination weddings for my couples, wherever they take me. And they took me to San Diego, and the groom, and let's go back to listening to your clients. I asked him what he does, and he told me that a year ago when they booked me, but I remembered it. He said that he's a rescue diver for the Navy. Jumps out of helicopters to help people that drown in the water. And he wanted to do photos in the mall, but I dragged him to the boat, to the aircraft carrier, and we photographed them. We had so much fun. This is my first time on an aircraft carrier, and I had more fun than him. And we have beautiful photos from that session, and we used off-camera lighting just to, so the sunset, obviously, as you can see, is over there. We brought a little bit of lighting just to bring light into their hair. That's it. And this photo, another all-time favorite of mine, was shot at the night of Sandy storm. It didn't hit DC as hard as it hit New York, but it was still a pretty crazy evening. 5 minutes before the ceremony, 10 minutes later, it was pouring rain and all that. By the way, I see that thing going on in this photo, so I think it's something with a projection. So don't judge. That's texture, yeah. What's that? Yeah, I added a little bit of texture to bring in the sky a little bit. But we used two lights in here. One light facing them from here, and you can see that it spilled here a little bit. And one light from behind to bring back the little bit of exposure to the dress here. But not too much. And the wind did the rest. The same couple you saw before in Queens wanted to photograph in Times Square. Same thing, only here I had to drag the shutter a little bit to get some, we almost lost a person in this mess because people in New York apparently don't give a damn. So they almost ran over my assistant, but we did it and it looks great. Without the proper lighting, would you be able to get that beautiful skin tone on the legs and the rims and the detail from the sparkle from the dress? You just can't. You can do beautiful stuff, but certain things you just can't do without the right lighting. Another one with off-camera lighting, very patriotic couple. They flew into DC just to get married. None of them are from DC, but he's a Marine, and they wanted something that is DC, that is the U.S. flag. So we did a night shoot for them. Everything was from 11 o'clock at night and later. We took them to the Washington Monument and photographed a ton of photos for them. This is so long ago, but I still love this photo, and I bring it to every presentation I do. Two lights. Very, very, very soft. One from here, both with umbrellas. 45 degrees on both. Basic. This was done during... Really? Whoa. Oh, time flies. Are you guys having fun? Yeah. All right. Okay, good. No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you're not sleeping. We did this photo in Vegas Photo Walk. Can you tell how many lights are in the shot? I'll answer that. 3 lights. Key light, 45 degrees with the softbox, giving us what you see here, all this exposure. You can read the time off his watch if I zoomed in. Super, super high detail, very crispy. Second light, coming from the left, just a little bit. Dial down, ratio, very, very low. And third light, from behind her. Simple speed light, just held like this. Someone was staying there and holding a speed light. And it created a photo with separation and rim light and hair light and bling light and everything you can think of. And on a real TV, a real screen, you can see details both in the black tux and the white dress. That's something that on-camera flash simply doesn't do. And as a little extra, everything I showed you today works both for corporate headshots and families. 1 light, 3 light. You can see the light and where it came from, okay? And this is just 1 light. And this is another 1 light. And we're really running out of time, and I want to do a quick demo with you guys. But remember I told you about that crazy family I love? So we're doing a holiday photo shoot for them, and we're on a rooftop of a really nice hotel in DC. And there was a pool next to me, infinity pool, but I'm thinking, I'd love to get them in there. How am I going to do that? And so the kids, they started thinking about it. Should we do it? And she's wearing a $3,000 dress, and I don't want to know how much his shoes cost. But I dared, and I said, get in the water. And they took their shoes off, they got in the water, and we had two beautiful lights. One was a bigger octobox than this on one side, and another square softbox on the other with grids. And I did exactly what I do all the time. I took a photo as if they're not there. I set my exposure for the background as if I'm photographing architectural for the hotel. I make sure I get the sky in by dialing the shutter speed up. The faster the camera, the shutter speed is, you're going to get the sky coming in more. And then, of course, I wanted to keep the aperture safe, f4. I don't have to do it 2.8. And I started having them playing with the water and spraying. And we have at least 20 shots from this rooftop. So she sent out a beautiful, beautiful Christmas card for all of her friends. And I'm Jewish, so it didn't really matter. But I got a beautiful Christmas card from her. And that photo shoot brought me so much more business. Because all of a sudden, all of her friends called me and said, we want to do something this crazy. So it was worth trying because it brought me a lot more business than it would if I continued taking families to the park and shooting them under the tree, which is where we thought we were going to do it in the beginning. Here's a few things that I recommend you guys do. First of all, don't be afraid to ask any questions. Without it, you're not going to learn. Don't be afraid to try and try new things, and don't stop what you're doing because you're on the right path. I started with nothing. I came here 9 years ago with a suitcase and a digital Rebel. That's all I had. If I can do it, you guys can do it, okay? Give yourself some round of applause, please. It's for you guys. What we're going to do next is we're going to tether my camera to the laptop. We need just 2 minutes to set it up. And we're going to do a quick demo just to show you how the new ProPhoto B1s work. What ProPhoto added to the B1s that never existed and still doesn't exist with any other brand of studio strobes is the TTL functionality. Now, TTL is not something you have to use. I personally like to use manual mode because I like to have more control. But why do we need TTL? We need it if we are in a situation where exposure changes drastically nonstop. Or if I have to work so fast that I don't even have time to set my camera. If I just want to shoot and not think about the exposure and still get good exposures. So ProPhoto took the old D1 and added battery to it, what you see here, and the TTL functionality. And it works great because they're relatively portable and they're not too heavy, so not that I carry them. But my assistant walks around with them. Can we switch this to one light on a pole so that it'll be easier? Is that okay? Okay, so Ricky, how are you? All right, watch your step. I don't have insurance.
I'll go behind you.
All right, go behind me. Thanks, David. So when I compose a shot, remember what we said we do? First of all, I'm turning the lights off. I'm not going to pop this light until I need it to. I want to get a composition. So I initially was going to go in the aisle, but it's a little tight. I'm going to come down here. And Ricky, I'm going to have you stand on the edge. Just don't fall, please. I want you to do a nice, yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Everybody can see Ricky? Can you say hi, Ricky? Hi. All right. Do I get a little more cable? Thanks. All right, so let's see. Beautiful. That's great. I'm not going to shoot full length because I'm running a little bit out of space here. So I'm going to photograph 3/4, and I'm going to try and get the chandeliers. And I'm setting my camera to basic settings of ISO 500, f3.5, and the shutter speed of 100. It's a start. You have to start somewhere. And I'm going to come down here and do a test shot. And it looks really good, actually, the way it is, so I'm not going to fill. Can you guys see it on the screen? Okay. David, you know, if you hit Shift-Tab, it's going to lose all the tabs in Lightroom. There you go. You guys have a little more. And if you hit I, one more time, you guys can see the camera settings, right? I'm good at this. Okay, so I got my test shot. Let me show you the difference between shutter speed of 200 and 100. So this was 100, now it's going to be 200. Which one do you guys prefer, the 100 or the 200? Little less, that's the 200. Somewhere in the middle, 160? All right, 160. And now I'm going to bring the light on. All right, so I'm going to work in TTL mode. And I'm going to do a test shot. Okay. I'm going to see when it comes up. And it's a little underexposed, so I'm going to bring the exposure up. Are we A or C? C. Okay, so I need to go to channel C and take the exposure up. I'm doing a little test to dump the charge. And one more. Can you bring the light a little closer? Because I'm getting harsh shadows. Or you know what, on the flip side, I want you to turn your head this way. Yeah, there you go. Beautiful. That looks great. I'm going to shoot. One of the things I like to do with photos is to photograph horizontally with a lot of negative space. But this one gives me the feeling that there's not enough ambient light. I'm opening up the aperture, the shutter speed a little bit, and I'm recomposing my image to bring the lights, instead of right behind Ricky's head, to another spot. Now this is a scenario where whoever asked me if I gel my lights had a great question. Because yes, I would like to gel my lights because I'm mixing two different white balances. I have daylight firing here, and I have the room lit by tungsten. That's a difference of 2,000 Kelvin. So I can't go and gel all those chandeliers. It'll take 6 days. But I can put a gel on my lights. Most of the locations I work with are mixed lighting, and majority is daylight. And that's why I'm not typically gelling when I'm doing portraits. I do gel when I do the reception. So here, let's pretend it's gelled, and you can see that regardless of the color, the exposure is pretty good. And I can open up the shutter even more, and let's do one more. Thank you, Ricky. Now I open up the shutter a little more, and I'm going to do even attempt to do a full length. I know I'm going to probably cut out something there, but let's do it. Can you take a hair step this way? Beautiful. My shutter speed right now is 100. Can you bring the light to this side? All right, beautiful. And sorry, I need one more volunteer to fluff the dress. Thank you, Ricky. Beautiful. Looks gorgeous. Can you turn your head more to the right and look at the bottom of the dress? And now look into the light. Beautiful. Now take this system and put it in any scenario where you use off-camera lighting, and you just created a great photo where you don't have to use reflectors or take the person outside to create the photo. You can work anywhere because you're controlling the light. I can do this photo anywhere in the hall, and I can take her outside, and I can do the same thing in the street with New York cityscape in the background. Does anybody have any questions about this? Yes? I was using TTL. I'm sorry, you asked me if I used TTL, and I didn't make any. Yes, I was using TTL. I didn't make any adjustments. Actually, I did adjust in the camera. I brought up the TTL by 1 stop. Yes, absolutely.
This gentleman, that'll be our
Go for it.
last question.
How well can I work with speedlights? You can. ProPhoto makes a speed ring that takes 2 speedlights in it, and you can put 2 speedlights and trigger them with Pocket Wizard or Canon's wireless system. That's fine. This is a little more powerful. Yeah, you can shape the speedlights, turn them to the side. The baffle inside is silver reflective. It'll work. This is a lot more consistent when you need to use high power. And the recycle time is much faster. With TTL, you can shoot up to 50,000 clicks on the lowest setting. That's a little more than one wedding. Yes? Perspective? You're asking, how did I get the perspective from shooting below? Well, good question. I wasn't too close to her. I was on. It's a pretty deep stage, so you can see it. You're right. I wouldn't shoot right up someone's nose. But I was pretty far, and I was using a long lens with more compression, so you're not getting that much of a wide-angle distortion, even from shooting from below. Guys, I want to thank you so much for sitting and listening, and I'll be here throughout the evening. If you have any questions, please let me know, okay? Thank you very much.